The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, spraying golden liquid across Naomi Williams's black heels. She didn't flinch. Around the private room of Seoul's most exclusive lounge, 6 men in dark suits sat motionless, their eyes fixed on the man who'd thrown it. Choi Dae-jung, the loan shark who'd been circling her gallery for 3 months, leaned back in his leather chair with a smile that made Naomi's stomach turn. "Your father owed me 200 million won before he died," Dae-jung said, his Korean slow and deliberate, as if speaking to a child. "That debt doesn't disappear just because he's gone, Miss Williams. In Korea, family debts are inherited. You understand this, yes? Your Korean is good enough for that?" Naomi's fingers tightened around her clutch. Her Korean was perfect, actually. 10 years in Seoul had made sure of that, even if people like Dae-jung enjoyed pretending otherwise. "My father and I hadn't spoken in 5 years. I don't have that kind of money." "Then you have a problem." Dae-jung gestured to one of his men, who placed a folder on the table between them. "Your gallery, your apartment in Gangnam, your car. Even if we take everything, you're still short by half. So I'm offering you an alternative." The folder contained photographs. Naomi in her gallery, Naomi at the grocery store, Naomi leaving her apartment building at 6 in the morning for her run. Her hands shook as she flipped through them, rage and fear battling in her chest. "You've been following me." "Insurance," Dae-jung said. "You're a foreign woman alone in Seoul, Miss Williams. No family here, no protection. I wanted to make sure you understood your situation before we had this conversation." He leaned forward. "There's a club in Gangnam that caters to men with specific tastes. Foreign women, especially black women, are very popular. You work there for 2 years, and your debt is cleared. Clean. Simple." The room tilted. Naomi gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white. "You're insane." "I'm a businessman. You have something valuable. I'm offering you a way to—" The door to the private room opened. Naomi didn't see who entered at first. She only saw Dae-jung's face drain of color, watched him stumble out of his chair and drop into a bow so deep his forehead nearly touched the table. The 5 other men followed instantly, their movements synchronized like a military drill. "Sajangnim," Dae-jung breathed. "We didn't know. I wasn't informed you would be—" "Clearly." The voice was quiet, cold, and absolutely in control. "Leave." Dae-jung's head snapped up. "Sir, this is just a small matter. A personal debt collection. Nothing that requires—" "I said leave." They left. All 6 of them, scrambling over each other to get through the door, leaving Naomi alone with the stranger. She finally turned to look at him. Kang Min-hyuk was taller than she'd expected from the rumors. Early 30s, dressed in a black suit. That probably cost more than her monthly gallery rent, with the kind of sharp features that would have made him a model if he weren't the heir to the Kang crime syndicate. Everyone in Seoul knew the name. The Kang family controlled half the city's underground economy, clubs, construction, shipping, and whispers of worse things that people didn't say out loud. He was looking at her with an expression she couldn't read. "Miss Williams," he said in English, his accent American-educated and smooth. "My apologies for Choi Dae-jung's behavior. He oversteps." Naomi stood, forcing her legs to stop shaking. "You speak English?" "I spent 4 years at USC." He moved to the table and picked up the folder of photographs, flipping through them with distaste before closing it. "These men have no sense of boundaries. This is not how the Kang family conducts business." "The Kang family," Naomi repeated. Her mouth was dry. "You bought my father's debt. 3 months ago. I've been meaning to contact you about a resolution." He pulled out a chair and gestured to it. "Please sit. You look like you might fall over." She wanted to refuse on principle, but he was right. Her knees felt like water. She sat, watching him warily as he took the seat Dae-jung had vacated. Up close, she could see the scar along his jawline, thin and precise, and the way his eyes tracked her movements with unsettling focus. "I'm not working in a club," Naomi said flatly. "I don't care who owns the debt." Something flickered across his face. Anger, maybe, but directed inward rather than at her. "That was never on the table. Dae-jung will be dealt with for suggesting it." He folded his hands on the table. "I have a different proposal. A marriage." The room spun again. Naomi laughed, the sound high and slightly hysterical. "Excuse me?" "A business arrangement. The Kang family needs to project stability right now. I'm 32, unmarried, and my mother has been pressuring me to settle down. You need your debt cleared and protection from men like Dae-jung. We can help each other." "You're serious?" "Completely." His expression didn't change. "The marriage would be real in legal terms. You would live in my home, attend events as my wife, and present the appropriate image. In return, your debt is eliminated immediately, and you receive a monthly allowance of 20 million won. You can continue running your gallery. After 2 years, if you wish to divorce, I'll arrange it quietly and settle another 50 million won on you as severance." Naomi stared at him. "Why would you do this?" "I told you. Stability. Image." "No." She leaned forward. "Why me? You're one of the most powerful men in Seoul. You could have any woman you wanted. Why offer this to some random Black American with a dead father's debt?" For the first time, something cracked in his careful expression. He looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch, like he was seeing through her skin to something underneath. "You're not random," he said quietly. "And I have my reasons. Do you accept?" Every instinct screamed at her to run. This was insane. Dangerous. She didn't know this man, didn't know what he was capable of, didn't know what she'd be walking into. But the folder of photographs sat between them, a reminder of what her alternative looked like. Men like Dae-jung. A debt she could never pay. The constant fear of looking over her shoulder in the city she'd made her home. If you're enjoying this story, please like and subscribe for more dramatic Korean-inspired romance tales. Your support helps us bring you longer, more detailed stories like this one. "I need guarantees," Naomi said. "In writing. Legal documents. Not just your word." "Of course. My lawyer will draw up a contract tomorrow. And I want my own lawyer to review it. I'll pay for them." He pulled a business card from his jacket and slid it across the table. "Think about it tonight. Call me tomorrow. With your decision." He stood, buttoning his jacket with practiced ease, and moved toward the door. Then he paused, looking back at her with that same unreadable expression. "For what it's worth," he said, "I'm not cruel. Whatever you've heard about me, whatever reputation I have, I won't hurt you. You have my word." Then he was gone, leaving Naomi alone in the private room with a business card in her hand and her entire life turned upside down. She looked down at the card. Clean, expensive cardstock with minimal text. Kang Min-hyuk. A phone number. Nothing else. Her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend, Sun-hee. "Girl, where are you? You were supposed to meet me an hour ago." Naomi typed back. "Something came up. Can I come over? I need to talk." The response came immediately. "Always. I have soju." Naomi stood on shaking legs, grabbed her clutch, and walked out of the lounge. The night air hit her face, cold and sharp, as she stepped onto the Seoul street. Around her, the city blazed with neon and noise, people streaming past in the endless flow of Gangnam nightlife. She felt disconnected from all of it, like she'd stepped into an alternate reality where crime bosses proposed marriage in private rooms and her entire future hung on a single decision. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "The car outside is for you. My driver will take you wherever you need to go tonight. KMH." Naomi looked up. Sure enough, a black Mercedes waited at the curb, its driver standing at attention beside the rear door. When he saw her looking, he bowed slightly. She should refuse. Should call a regular taxi and pretend this whole night had never happened. But her feet carried her to the Mercedes, and she heard herself giving Sun-hee's address in Itaewon. The driver opened the door without comment. The interior smelled like leather and something else, something expensive and masculine that she couldn't identify. As they pulled into traffic, Naomi caught sight of her reflection in the window. She looked terrified. "Miss Williams?" The driver's voice came through an intercom. "Sejong-nim asked me to inform you that you're under Kang family protection as of tonight. No one will bother you. You're safe." Safe. The word felt foreign. She'd never felt safe in Seoul, not really. Even before her father's debt had surfaced, there'd always been the low hum of anxiety that came with being a black woman in a city that stared, that touched her hair without asking, that treated her like an exotic curiosity rather than a person. And now the most dangerous man in the city was calling her safe. Sun-hee lived in a small apartment above a convenience store in Itaewon, Seoul's international district. When Naomi knocked, her friend yanked the door open immediately, took one look at her face, and pulled her inside. "What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost." Naomi sank onto the worn couch. "I think I just agreed to marry a crime boss." Sun-hee, to her, if credit, didn't laugh. She poured 2 shots of soju, handed one to Naomi and said, "Start from the beginning." So Naomi did. The loan sharks, Daejung's proposition, Min-hyuk's sudden appearance and his proposal. By the time she finished, both bottles of soju were empty and Sun-hee was pacing the small living room. "Kang Min-hyuk," Sun-hee said. "The Kang Min-hyuk. Naomi, do you understand who that is? A criminal. A king. That family runs this city, they're untouchable." Sun-hee stopped pacing and looked at her. "They're also dangerous as hell. There are stories. People who cross them disappear. Businesses that don't pay protection money burn down. And Min-hyuk himself." She trailed off. "What about him?" "They call him the Ice Prince. Never smiles. Never loses control. There's a rumor that he once had a man's hands broken for touching his car. Another rumor that he's never had a girlfriend because he's incapable of emotional attachment." Sun-hee sat down heavily. "And you're going to marry him?" "I don't know yet. Maybe." "Naomi, what choice do I have?" Naomi's voice cracked. "Daejung was going to sell me to a club. Min-hyuk is offering me a way out. 2 years, and I'm free. I can handle 2 years." Sun-hee grabbed her hands. "Can you? Can you really handle being married to a man like that? Living in his house? Pretending to be in love in public while knowing what he does for a living?" Naomi thought about the photographs in that folder, about the look in Daejung's eyes when he'd described the club, about the weight of her father's debt that had hung around her neck for 3 months, like a noose slowly tightening. "I have to try," she said. The contract arrived at Naomi's gallery the next morning, delivered by a woman in a crisp suit who introduced herself as Attorney Kim. She was in her 50s, sharp-eyed and utterly professional, as she laid out the thick document on Naomi's desk. "I've been instructed to wait while you review this and answer any questions," Attorney Kim said. "Sejong-nim also wanted me to inform you that he's arranged for independent legal counsel. Attorney Park will arrive within the hour to review the contract on your behalf." Naomi stared at the document. It was in both Korean and English, running to 30 pages of dense legal text. "This is really happening." "Only if you sign," Attorney Kim said, not unkindly. "You're under no obligation." Sejong-nim was very clear about that. The contract was thorough to the point of being overwhelming. It outlined everything: the 2-year term of the marriage, the monthly allowance of 20 million won, the elimination of her father's debt, effective immediately upon signing, provisions for her gallery's continued operation, a separate apartment within the Kang family compound for her personal use if she wished, medical insurance, a clothing allowance, and a divorce settlement of 50 million won at the end of 2 years. There were clauses about public appearances, social obligations, and expected behavior at family events. What struck Naomi most was what wasn't in the contract. There was no mention of physical intimacy, no requirements for her to perform wifely duties beyond the public presentation of the marriage. The separate apartment clause gave her an escape route, a space that would be entirely hers. It was, in its own strange way, respectful. Attorney Park arrived exactly 1 hour later. He was younger than Attorney Kim, probably early 40s, and he went through the contract with meticulous care, explaining each clause in detail. When he finished, he looked at Naomi seriously. "This is an unusual document," he said, "but it's fair. More than fair, actually. The terms heavily favor you. If you decide to proceed, I would recommend only one addition. A clause allowing you to terminate the contract early if Sejongnim engages in behavior that puts your safety at risk." "Will he agree to that?" Naomi asked. Attorney Kim pulled out her phone and stepped away, speaking quietly in rapid Korean. She returned 2 minutes later. "Done. Sejongnim agrees to the amendment. Attorney Park, please draft the language." It took another hour to finalize the revised contract. By the time both lawyers were satisfied, Naomi's hands were shaking. She picked up the pen Attorney Kim offered her. "Once you sign, everything changes," Attorney Kim said. "Take a moment if you need it." Naomi thought about her father. Michael Williams had been a gambler, a dreamer, a man who'd moved to Seoul 15 years ago chasing business opportunities that never materialized. He'd borrowed money from the wrong people and dragged Naomi into his mess even after death. She'd loved him once, before the disappointments and broken promises had hardened into resentment. Now he was gone, and she was left cleaning up his mistakes. But this didn't have to be a mistake. This could be a choice. Her choice. She signed her name on the final page. Attorney Kim witnessed the signature and then pulled out her phone again. "It's done," she said into it. Then, to Naomi, "Sejongnim will meet you at Seoul City Hall tomorrow at 10 a.m. to file the marriage registration. He asks if you would like to invite anyone." "My friend Sun-hee," Naomi said. "And that's all." "Very well. A car will collect you at 9:30. Attorney Kim gathered the documents. "Welcome to the Kang family, Mrs. Kang." Mrs. Kang. The name felt foreign in Naomi's mouth. She sat alone in her gallery after the lawyers left, surrounded by the art she'd spent years collecting and curating. Korean contemporary pieces mixed with African diaspora artists, creating dialogues across cultures and continents. This space was hers. She'd built it from nothing, scraping together loans and grants and her own savings to create something beautiful. Now it was safe. The debt was gone. She should feel relieved. Instead, she felt numb. Her phone rang. Min-hyuk's number. "Miss Williams." His voice was as controlled as she remembered. "Attorney Kim confirmed you signed the contract." "I did." "Then I owe you thanks. This arrangement benefits me greatly." "It benefits both of us," Naomi said. "That's why it's an arrangement." "Indeed." A pause. "Tomorrow might feel rushed. I apologize for that. My mother has been informed of our marriage and has insisted on a formal family dinner tomorrow evening. If you'd prefer to delay—" "No, let's get it over with." Another pause, longer this time. When he spoke again, his voice had shifted slightly, becoming less formal. "Are you frightened?" The question surprised her. "Should I be?" "No, but I would understand if you were." He sighed, and for a moment he sounded almost human. "I know my reputation. I know what people say about me and my family. I want you to understand that you will be protected. Anyone who disrespects you or attempts to harm you will answer to me personally. That includes members of my own family." Even your mother? Especially my mother. There was steel in his voice. Tomorrow at City Hall, we'll file the paperwork. It takes a few minutes. Then we'll return to my home so you can settle in before dinner. You can bring whatever you'd like from your apartment. I'll send people to pack and move the rest this week. I haven't agreed to live with you yet. The contract says I can have my own apartment. It does, but my mother will expect to see evidence of a real marriage. Separate residences would raise questions. He paused. I have 12 bedrooms, Miss Williams. You can choose any one you like. You'll have privacy. I'm rarely home in the evenings anyway. That should have been reassuring. Instead, it made her inexplicably sad. What kind of marriage is this going to be? The kind we both can live with, he said. That's all I can offer. Is it enough? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next story. We post new dramatic romances every week. Naomi closed her eyes. It has to be. The line went quiet for a moment. Get some rest tonight, Miss Williams. Tomorrow, your life changes. He hung up before she could respond. Naomi sat in the gathering darkness of her gallery, watching the Seoul evening lights flicker on outside her windows. Somewhere in this city, Kang Min-hyuk was living his life, making his plans, running his criminal empire. And tomorrow, she would become his wife. She called Sun-hee. How mad would you be if I asked you to be my witness at a wedding tomorrow? Sun-hee screamed so loudly Naomi had to hold the phone away from her ear. The next morning arrived too quickly. Naomi dressed carefully, choosing a simple cream dress that felt appropriate without being too bridal. Sun-hee showed up at 8 with coffee and panic. You're really doing this. Oh my God, you're really doing this. Help me with my hair, Naomi said, handing her the silk scarf she'd chosen. Sun-hee wrapped it expertly, creating an elegant crown that made Naomi feel like she had at least some control over the situation. The Mercedes arrived precisely at 9:30. The same driver from before opened the door with a respectful bow. Mrs. Kang. The title sent a shiver down her spine. I'm not Mrs. Kang yet. Sejongnim has instructed all staff to address you as such from today forward, the driver said. He wishes to make clear your position in the family. Sun-hee grabbed Naomi's hand as they slid into the back seat. I'm going to be here the whole time. If you want to run, we run. But when they arrived at Seoul City Hall, Min-hyuk was already there, and running became impossible. He stood at the top of the steps in a dark suit, flanked by two men who were obviously security. When he saw Naomi, something flickered across his face too quickly for her to read. He came down the steps to meet her, and for the first time, she saw him in full daylight. He was younger than she'd realized, with tired eyes that suggested too many sleepless nights. The scar on his jaw was more prominent in the sunlight. Miss Williams, he said. Then, correcting himself, Naomi, you look beautiful. Thank you. She introduced Sun-hee, who was staring at Min-hyuk with undisguised suspicion. Your friend is welcome to join us inside, Min-hyuk said. Shall we? The actual registration took 15 minutes. They filled out forms, presented identification, and signed documents while a board clerk processed everything with bureaucratic efficiency. There was no ceremony, no vows, no moment of solemnity. Just paperwork and stamps, and suddenly Naomi was legally married to a man she'd met 2 days ago. Congratulations, the clerk said without emotion. You may pick up your official certificate in 2 weeks. Outside, Sun-hee hugged Naomi fiercely. Call me if you need anything, day or night. I don't care what time it is. I will, Naomi promised. Take care of her, Sun-hee said to Min-hyuk, her voice hard. Or you'll answer to me. To Naomi's surprise, Min-hyuk bowed slightly. I will. You have my word. Sun-hee left in a taxi, looking back repeatedly until they turned the corner. Then it was just Naomi and Min-hyuk and his security team. The car will take you to collect anything you need from your apartment, Min-hyuk said. I have business to attend to this afternoon, but I'll be home before dinner. 6 o'clock. My mother dines at 7 sharp. She's very particular about punctuality. What should I expect tonight? His expression darkened. Judgment, criticism, questioning your background, your intentions, your suitability as a daughter-in-law. My mother is not an easy woman. Will you defend me? Always. The word was immediate and absolute. You're my wife now. That means something in my family. It means everything. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small box. Inside was a ring, a simple platinum band with a single diamond. It was elegant, understated, and probably cost more than Naomi's car. I should have given this to you yesterday, he said. May I? She held out her hand. His fingers were warm as he slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. How did you know my size? I pay attention, he said simply. Then he produced a second ring, a matching men's band, and handed it to her. Would you? Her hands shook as she took his hand and slid the ring onto his finger. It felt strangely intimate, this exchange. More real than the paperwork they'd just signed. There, Min-hyuk said quietly. Now it's official. The drive to her apartment was silent. Min-hyuk sat beside her, occasionally checking his phone but mostly just looking out the window. Naomi studied him when she thought he wasn't paying attention. There was a tension in his jaw, a tightness around his eyes that suggested he was as nervous as she was. Can I ask you something? She said finally. Of course. Why do this? Really? You're powerful enough that your mother's pressure shouldn't matter. You could have found someone more suitable, someone from your world who understands this life. Why offer this deal to me? He was quiet for a long moment. Would you believe me if I said I wanted to help you? No. Then let's say I saw an opportunity that benefited both of us and took it. He looked at her directly. Does it matter? We both got what we needed. It matters if you're lying to me. I'm not lying. I'm simply not telling you everything. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. We're married, Naomi. We don't have to tell each other everything. We just have to make it work. At her apartment, he waited in the car while she packed. She took clothes, photographs, her favorite books, and the few pieces of jewelry her mother had left her before she passed away. Everything else could wait. When she came back down with 2 suitcases, Min-hyuk got out to help her load them. Is this everything you want for now? Yes. Then let's go home. Home. The word felt impossible. But as they drove through Seoul's afternoon traffic toward Gangnam, toward whatever waited for her in the Kang family compound, Naomi realized she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. She was Mrs. Kang now. For better or worse, for 2 years or forever, her life had changed. The Kang compound was in Pyeongchang-dong, Seoul's most exclusive neighborhood, where old money built walls high enough to keep out the curious. The car passed through security gates and up a winding drive lined with manicured gardens. The main house was traditional Korean architecture updated with modern glass and steel, 3 stories of understated wealth that probably cost more than Naomi could comprehend. My parents live in the main house, Min-hyuk explained as they pulled up. I have my own wing. You won't have to see them unless there's a family gathering. How often are family gatherings? Too often. He helped her out of the car. Come, I'll show you your room. They entered through a private entrance that led directly to his wing. Inside, everything was minimalist and expensive, all clean lines and neutral colors. Min-hyuk led her up a staircase to the 2nd floor and opened a door at the end of the hall. The room beyond was enormous, easily twice the size of her entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a private garden. There was a king-sized bed, a sitting area, a walk-in closet, and a bathroom that looked like a spa. This is yours, Min-hyuk said. My room is downstairs. You'll have complete privacy. It's beautiful. I'm glad you like it. He set her suitcases down. Take some time to settle in. I need to take care of some business before dinner. If you need anything, there's a house phone by the bed. Press 1 and someone will assist you. He turned to leave, but Naomi stopped him. Min-hyuk? He looked back, and for a moment she saw something vulnerable in his expression. Thank you, she said, for this, for all of it. I know this is strange, but thank you. You don't need to thank me, he said quietly. Just survive dinner with my mother. That will be thanks enough. Then he was gone, and Naomi was alone in a room bigger than her entire previous life, wearing a ring that marked her as someone's wife, with no idea what came next. Naomi unpacked slowly, hanging her clothes in the massive closet that still looked empty even after she'd added everything she owned. The bathroom had heated floors, a soaking tub that could fit 3 people, and a shower with jets coming from 6 different directions. There were fresh towels monogrammed with a subtle K, luxury skincare products she recognized from department stores she couldn't afford, and a robe so soft it felt like wearing a cloud. She sat on the edge of the bed and called Sun-hee. "How's married life?" Sun-hee asked immediately. "Surreal. I'm in a bedroom the size of a small house. He has heated floors, Sun-hee. Heated floors. But how is he? Is he treating you okay?" Naomi thought about Min-hyuk's careful politeness, the way he'd slipped the ring on her finger, the vulnerability she'd glimpsed before he'd hidden it again. He's been respectful. Distant, but respectful. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't this. What's this? Lonely, Naomi said before she could stop herself. This feels lonely. She hung up before Sun-hee could press further and spent the next 2 hours exploring her new prison. Because that's what it felt like, despite the luxury. A beautiful cage. The garden outside her window was perfectly maintained but surrounded by high walls. The room had everything she could need, which meant she never had to leave it. She could hide here for 2 years and fulfill her contract without ever really living. At 5:30, there was a soft knock on her door. A woman in her 60s stood in the hallway dressed in a traditional hanbok. "Mrs. Kang, I'm Mrs. Cho, the head housekeeper. Sejongnim asked me to help you prepare for dinner if you'd like assistance." "Prepare how?" Mrs. Cho's smile was kind. "The madam is very traditional. She will expect you to dress appropriately for a family dinner. I've taken the liberty of selecting a few options from your wardrobe, but if you'd prefer something else, I can arrange for..." "No, that's fine. Thank you." Naomi followed Mrs. Cho back into the room, where 3 outfits had been laid out on the bed. All conservative, all elegant, all screaming effort. She chose a navy dress with a modest neckline and let Mrs. Cho help her with her hair, pulling it back into a sleek bun that felt more controlled than Naomi liked, but seemed appropriate for the occasion. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. She looked like someone's wife. Someone's perfectly polished, acceptable wife. "You look beautiful," Mrs. Cho said. "Don't let the madam intimidate you. She intimidates everyone at first." "Even Min-hyuk?" Mrs. Cho's expression softened. "Especially Sejongnim. He spent his whole life trying to meet her expectations." She paused, then added carefully, "But he's a good man. Better than people think. You'll see." At 6 o'clock sharp, there was another knock. Min-hyuk stood in the hallway, changed into a fresh suit. His eyes widened slightly when he saw her. "You look perfect," he said. Then more quietly, "Are you ready?" "No." "Good. Neither am I." He offered his arm. "We'll survive it together." They walked through the compound toward the main house. The evening air was cool, and Naomi could hear water flowing from a fountain somewhere in the gardens. It would have been romantic under different circumstances. "My mother's name is Kang Yeon-hee," Min-hyuk said as they walked. She'll insist you call her mother. My father, Kang Jae-won, will be polite but mostly silent. He lets her run the family. My younger sister Ji-won will probably be there too. She's studying at Yuha University. She's harmless, just curious. What should I expect from your mother? Questions about your background, your education, your family, your intentions toward me and the family business. She'll try to find weaknesses. He glanced at her. Don't let her. You're my wife. That gives you power in this family, whether she likes it or not. Does she know about the contract? No. And she won't. As far as anyone knows, we met, fell in love, and married quickly. He stopped walking and turned to face her. Naomi, I need you to understand something. In public, in front of my family, I will act like a devoted husband. I'll touch you, stand close to you, defend you. It's necessary for this to work. If that makes you uncomfortable, tell me now, and I'll adjust. It's fine, Naomi said, though her heart was racing. I understand the performance. Something flickered in his eyes. Good. Then let's begin. He took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers, and led her into the main house. The dining room was formal and traditional, with a low table and cushions for seating. Kang Yeon-hee sat at the head of the table, a woman in her late 50s with the kind of beauty that came from excellent bone structure and expensive maintenance. She wore a designer hanbok and an expression of supreme displeasure. Mother, Min-hyuk said, bowing. Father, Ji-won, this is my wife, Naomi. Naomi bowed as deeply as she could manage, her heart pounding. It's an honor to meet you. Yeon-hee looked at her the way someone might examine a bug. Sit. They sat, Min-hyuk keeping Naomi close to his side. His father, Jae-won, was a large man with gray hair and tired eyes. He nodded at Naomi, but said nothing. Ji-won, a pretty girl in her early 20s, stared at Naomi with open curiosity. So, Yeon-hee said, her English crisp and precise. You're the American my son married without telling his family. Yes, ma'am. Don't call me ma'am. You're family now, supposedly. Call me mother. The word dripped with sarcasm. Tell me, Naomi, what do your parents do? My mother passed away when I was 18. She was a teacher. My father was a businessman. Was? He passed away 3 months ago. Yeon-hee's eyes sharpened. I see. And what kind of business? Min-hyuk's hand tightened on Naomi's. Mother, Naomi, runs an art gallery in Gangnam. She's been in Seoul for 10 years and speaks fluent Korean. Her background is not relevant to our marriage. Everything is relevant, Yeon-hee snapped, especially when my son marries a foreigner without consulting his family. What college did you attend? Howard University in Washington, D.C., Naomi said, lifting her chin. I have a degree in art history and a minor in Korean studies. Howard. Yeon-hee said the name like it tasted bad. Not Ivy League? No, it's an HBCU, a historically black college. I'm proud of that education. Interesting? Yeon-hee turned to Min-hyuk. How did you meet? Min-hyuk didn't hesitate. At a gallery opening, 10 years ago, when I was finishing my degree at USC. I was in Seoul for the summer and I attended one of her exhibitions. We reconnected recently. It was a lie, smooth and confident, and Naomi tried not to react. 10 years ago? What was he talking about? 10 years, Yeon-hee repeated. And you're only marrying now? The timing wasn't right before, Min-hyuk said. Now it is. Staff brought out the first course and the conversation paused while everyone was served. Naomi had no appetite, but she forced herself to eat, aware of Yeon-hee's eyes tracking her every movement. You have a gallery, Yeon-hee said. How successful is it? Successful enough, Naomi replied. I represent both Korean and international artists. We focus on contemporary work that creates dialogue between cultures. And how did you afford to open a gallery? That requires significant capital. This was dangerous territory. Loans, grants. I worked 3 jobs while building the client base. And your father's debts? The room went silent. Naomi felt Min-hyuk go rigid beside her. How do you know about those? Naomi asked. I know everything about my family, Yeon-hee said coldly, including the fact that my son paid 200 million won to clear your father's gambling debts 2 days before you married him. Quite a coincidence. If you're loving this story, please consider sharing it with friends who enjoy dramatic romance, and don't forget to subscribe for more compelling tales like this one. Mother. Min-hyuk's voice was ice. That's enough. Is it? You expect me to believe this isn't a transaction? That this woman didn't trap you into marriage to escape her problems? I trapped her, Min-hyuk said quietly. Not the other way around. And if you ever suggest otherwise again, we will not be attending family dinners. Am I clear? The tension was suffocating. Jaewon cleared his throat. Yeon-hee, perhaps we should… No. Yeon-hee stood, her chair scraping back. If my son wants to marry some fortune hunter, that's his mistake. But don't expect me to welcome her into this family. She swept out of the room. Jaewon sighed heavily and followed. Jiwon looked between Min-hyuk and Naomi, her expression apologetic. I think she's pretty, Jiwon said in English, and brave for standing up to mother. Nobody does that. She smiled at Naomi. Welcome to the family, Unnie. It gets easier. Maybe. Then she left too, leaving Min-hyuk and Naomi alone at the table. I'm sorry, Min-hyuk said. That was worse than I expected. She called me a fortune hunter. She's wrong. Is she? Naomi turned to look at him. I married you for money, Min-hyuk. That's exactly what I am. You married me to escape an impossible situation that wasn't your fault. There's a difference. He stood and held out his hand. Come on. Let's get out of here. She let him lead her out of the main house and back toward his wing. But instead of going inside, he took her through the gardens to a small pavilion overlooking a koi pond. Lanterns cast soft light across the water. I come here when I need to think, Min-hyuk said. It's quiet, private. They sat on the pavilion steps. Naomi was shaking, adrenaline from the dinner finally hitting her. Your mother hates me. My mother hates everyone. Don't take it personally. How can I not? She looked at me like I was dirt. Min-hyuk was quiet for a moment. My mother grew up poor. She married my father for his family name and spent 30 years clawing her way to the top of Seoul society. In her mind, marriage is always a transaction. She can't understand that I might want something different. Do you? Want something different? He looked at her, and in the lantern light, his expression was unguarded. Yes, I think I do. What did you mean about 10 years ago? Naomi asked. That lie about the gallery opening. We didn't meet 10 years ago. Didn't we? He smiled slightly. You don't remember. I didn't expect you to. It was a group exhibition in Gangnam, July 2015. You were one of the artists. You did a series on identity and belonging. Photography mixed with traditional Korean ink painting. I bought one of your pieces. Naomi stared at him. That's impossible. I would have remembered. You were 22 and overwhelmed. I was just another face in the crowd. But I remembered you. He looked away, out over the water. I've thought about you for 10 years, Naomi. Wondered what happened to the passionate artist who made me feel something other than emptiness. And then, 3 months ago, your name crossed my desk attached to a debt file, and I knew I had a chance to… He stopped. To what? To be close to you. Even if it's fake. Even if it's just for 2 years. He laughed bitterly. You must think I'm pathetic. Naomi's mind was reeling. 10 years. He'd been watching her for 10 years. That's not normal, Min-hyuk. I know, but I'm not normal. I'm the heir to a criminal empire who's spent his entire life doing what's expected instead of what I want. And what I've wanted for 10 years is to know you. He finally looked at her. I know this is a lot. I know it's probably creepy and you're probably terrified of me now, but I promised I'd never lie to you, so there it is. The truth. She should run. Should demand to go back to her apartment, tear up the contract, escape before this got more complicated. But looking at him in the lantern light, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes, all she felt was a strange, unexpected sympathy. You bought my piece? She said. Which one? The self-portrait. You standing at the Han River with Seoul behind you, but your shadow was reaching toward the water like it wanted to escape. He smiled. It's in my bedroom. I look at it every day. That's... Naomi didn't have words. I don't know what that is. Obsessive? Unhealthy? Probably both. He stood. You should go rest. It's been a long day, and I've probably scared you enough for one evening. Min-hyuk. She stood too. Why didn't you just ask me out 10 years ago like a normal person? Because I knew what I was. What I'd become. My father was already grooming me to take over the family business. I was learning how to hurt people, how to threaten and manipulate and control. What would I have offered you? A relationship with a criminal? He shook his head. You deserved better than that. You still do. But you married me anyway. I'm selfish, he said simply. I saw a chance to have you in my life, even artificially, and I took it. I'm not proud of that, but I'm not sorry either. He walked her back to her room and paused at the door. If you want to leave, I'll arrange it. The contract is void if you're uncomfortable. I won't hold you to it. I signed an agreement, Naomi said. I don't break my word. Neither do I. He reached out like he might touch her face, then stopped himself. Good night, Naomi. Thank you for surviving tonight. Good night. She watched him walk away, then closed the door and leaned against it, her heart racing. Kang Min-hyuk had been in love with her for 10 years, had married her because of an obsession born from a single gallery opening when she'd been too young and overwhelmed to notice him. It was insane. It was disturbing. It was also, in a strange way, the most romantic thing anyone had ever done for her. She pulled out her phone and texted Sun-hee. You're not going to believe what just happened. The response came immediately. Tell me everything. But Naomi found she couldn't. Not yet. This felt too private, too raw, too complicated to share. Instead, she typed, his mother hates me, but I think I might be okay. She got ready for bed in the enormous bathroom, put on the softest pajamas she'd ever owned, and climbed into a bed that felt like sleeping on a cloud. Through her window, she could see the pavilion where Min-hyuk had confessed his 10-year obsession. The lanterns were still lit. Sleep should have been impossible. But exhaustion pulled her under, and she dreamed of gallery openings and shadows reaching toward water, and a man in a crowd who'd been watching her for a decade. Naomi woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of coffee. For a disoriented moment, she forgot where she was. Then reality crashed back. She was married. She lived in the Kang compound. Her mother-in-law hated her, and her husband had been obsessed with her for a decade. She found the source of the coffee smell on the sitting area table. A full breakfast spread had been laid out, still steaming, with a note in precise handwriting. Didn't want to wake you. Eat something. I'll be home around 6. M. Naomi ate mechanically, her mind churning. She needed to process everything, needed space to think. But when she tried to leave her room, she found Mrs. Cho waiting in the hallway. Good morning, Mrs. Kang. Sejongnim asked me to show you around the compound today if you're available. It wasn't really a question. Naomi followed Mrs. Cho through the sprawling estate, learning the layout of her new prison. The main house where Min-hyuk's parents lived. The secondary wing where Jiwon stayed when she wasn't at university. The gardens with their carefully maintained paths. The private gym. The library that held more books than Naomi had ever seen in one place. Sejongnim built this wing himself 5 years ago, Mrs. Cho explained as they toured Min-hyuk's section of the compound. He wanted his own space, separate from the family. He's very private. What's he like? Naomi asked. Really like, when he's home. Mrs. Cho considered the question. Lonely. He works 18-hour days, comes home exhausted and sits in his study until dawn. He doesn't sleep much, doesn't eat properly. He's been that way for years. She looked at Naomi meaningfully. Until yesterday. Yesterday, he came home at 5 o'clock. First time in 3 years. Because of dinner with his mother. Because of you. Mrs. Cho corrected gently. He wanted to make sure you were comfortable. That's not something Sejongnim usually concerns himself with. They returned to Naomi's wing around noon. Mrs. Cho left her with instructions to call if she needed anything, and Naomi found herself alone again. She tried to work, pulling out her laptop to check on gallery business, but she couldn't focus. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Kang? A woman's voice, professional and cold. This is Secretary Yang from the Kang Corporation headquarters. I'm calling to arrange your schedule for this week. You have a fitting appointment tomorrow at 10 a.m. with Designer Park for appropriate wardrobes. Thursday evening, you'll attend a charity gala with Sejongnim. Saturday afternoon is a family tea with the madam and several other family members. I'll send you the details by email. Wait, I didn't agree to... These are part of your obligations as Sejongnim's wife. The calendar is non-negotiable. I'll have a car pick you up for each appointment. Secretary Yang hung up before Naomi could protest. She stared at her phone in disbelief. Non-negotiable. Her life was being scheduled without her input, planned around appearances and obligations she'd never discussed. She should have expected this. The contract had mentioned social obligations, but knowing it intellectually and experiencing it were different things. She called Min-hyuk. He answered on the second ring, his voice distracted. Naomi? Is everything all right? Your secretary just called and filled my week with appointments I didn't agree to. Ah. Yes, I should have warned you. There are certain expectations that come with being my wife. Public appearances, social obligations. It's part of maintaining our image. I have a gallery to run. I have my own life. And you can continue running it. But you'll also need to attend events with me. That was in the contract. His voice softened. I know this is an adjustment, but it's necessary. The gala Thursday is important. Several of my business associates will be there, and they need to see us as a united front. A performance, Naomi said bitterly. Yes, a performance. He paused. I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you signed up for. Actually, it is exactly what I signed up for. I just didn't think about what it would really mean. She took a breath. Fine. I'll go to the appointments. I'll play the dutiful wife. But I need you to understand something, Min-hyuk. I'm not your doll. I'm not going to lose myself in this arrangement. I don't want you to. He sounded sincere. Naomi, keep your gallery. Keep your friends. Keep everything that makes you yourself. I only need you to stand beside me at public events and let people think we're in love. That's all. That's all, she repeated. Do you know how exhausting it is to pretend to be in love? The line went quiet for a long moment. Yes, he said finally. I do. He hung up before she could ask what he meant. The next day, Designer Park turned out to be a whirlwind of a woman in her 40s who took one look at Naomi and clapped her hands together with delight. Finally, someone interesting to dress. Mrs. Kang, you're going to be stunning. Sejongnim sent me your measurements and a brief about the events you'll be attending. I've prepared several options. For 3 hours, Naomi was measured, pinned, draped, and dressed in more expensive clothing than she'd ever imagined owning. Evening gowns, cocktail dresses, designer handbags, and shoes that cost more than her monthly rent used to. Designer Park had an opinion on everything and wasn't shy about sharing it. "You need to make a statement," she explained, while adjusting a red gown that fit Naomi like it had been painted on. "The Kang family has never had someone like you. Use that. Own it. Make them see you as powerful, not foreign." "Someone like me?" Naomi repeated. "You mean black." Designer Park met her eyes in the mirror. "I mean beautiful, confident, and unexpected. Your husband is one of the most powerful men in Seoul. That makes you one of the most powerful women. Act like it." Thursday evening arrived too quickly. Naomi dressed in the red gown Designer Park had insisted on, her hair styled in elegant waves, makeup professionally applied by a woman who'd arrived at 4 o'clock. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. She looked like she belonged in Min-hyuk's world. He was waiting for her at the bottom of the stairs, wearing a black tuxedo that made him look like he'd stepped out of a magazine. When he saw her, he went absolutely still. "Naomi," he breathed. "You're breathtaking. It's the dress. It's you." He offered his arm. "Ready?" "No." "Good answer." He smiled slightly. "Neither am I. We'll be nervous together." The gala was at the Shilla Hotel, Seoul's most prestigious venue. As their car pulled up, Naomi saw the crowd of people in evening wear, the photographers, the red carpet. Her stomach twisted. "I can't do this," she whispered. Min-hyuk took her hand. "Yes, you can. Just stay close to me. I'll handle everything." He helped her out of the car, and immediately the cameras started flashing. Naomi forced herself to smile, to stand straight, to look like she belonged here. Min-hyuk's hand was warm and steady at the small of her back, guiding her forward. "Sejangnim, Mrs. Kang, look this way." "Mrs. Kang, how did you meet your husband?" "Sejangnim, is it true you've been together for 10 years?" Min-hyuk ignored them all, moving them smoothly up the red carpet and into the hotel. Inside, the ballroom was filled with Seoul's elite. Women in designer gowns, men in expensive suits, everyone watching as they entered. "Smile," Min-hyuk murmured. "They're all jealous." "Of what?" "Of me, because I have you." He pulled her close, his hand possessive on her waist. "Let's give them something to talk about." He led her through the room, introducing her to a dizzying array of people whose names and titles blurred together. Business executives, politicians, old, money families. Everyone was polite to her face, but Naomi could see the curiosity in their eyes, the judgment, the speculation about who she was and why Min-hyuk had married her. "That's enough socializing," Min-hyuk said after an hour. "Let's dance." He led her onto the dance floor as a slow song began. His hand settled at her waist, and she placed hers on his shoulder, and suddenly they were swaying together in front of hundreds of people. "You're doing well," he said quietly. "Better than I expected." "I feel like I'm drowning." "You're not. You're swimming. There's a difference." He pulled her closer. "Just breathe. Look at me, not them." She did. Up close, she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could smell his cologne, could feel the warmth of his body against hers. For a moment, it didn't feel like a performance. It felt real. "Min-hyuk," she started, but he shook his head. "Not here, later. Right now, just dance with me." So she did. And as they moved across the floor, she became aware of whispers around them. She caught fragments of conversation in Korean. "Can't believe he married a foreigner. So exotic looking. Must be something special about her. Heard her father was a gambler." Min-hyuk's hand tightened on her waist. He'd heard them too. Remember to like this video if you're enjoying the story, and subscribe for part 2 where things get even more dramatic. Ignore them, he said. They're talking about my father. They're jealous and small-minded. Their opinions don't matter. But they did matter. Naomi could feel the weight of their judgment, their curiosity, their disapproval. She was an outsider here, and everyone knew it. The song ended, but before they could leave the dance floor, a woman approached them. She was stunning, probably late 20s, wearing a white gown that probably cost 6 figures. Her smile was ice. Min-hyuk oppa, she said in Korean, completely ignoring Naomi. It's been so long. I heard you got married. I had to come see for myself. Min-hyuk's expression went blank. Jiwon. Actually, I go by Nangshin now. More sophisticated, don't you think? She finally looked at Naomi, her gaze sweeping over her dismissively. So, this is your wife? How interesting. Naomi understood enough Korean to catch the insult in her tone. Naomi, she said, offering her hand. Nice to meet you. Nangsen ignored the offered hand. I'm sure Min-hyuk has told you all about me. We dated for 3 years. I thought we'd get married, actually. But then he suddenly broke things off last year. No explanation. Just gone. She smiled at Min-hyuk. And now I see why. He was waiting for something more exotic. That's enough, Min-hyuk said, his voice dangerous. Is it? I'm just making conversation with your new wife, unless she doesn't speak Korean well enough to understand me. Nangsen switched to English, her accent perfect. Oh wait, I forgot. You're American. How convenient for Min-hyuk, a wife who doesn't really understand his world. Naomi had spent 10 years in Seoul dealing with microaggressions, backhanded compliments, and outright racism disguised as curiosity. She recognized this game. My Korean is fluent, actually, Naomi said in perfect Korean, her tone pleasant. And I understand Min-hyuk's world better than you think. After all, he chose to marry me, not you. That must be difficult to accept. Nangsen's smile faltered. How dare you? We're leaving, Min-hyuk said, taking Naomi's hand. Don't approach us again, Nangsen. You're not welcome in our lives. He pulled Naomi through the crowd toward the exit. Behind them, Naomi could hear the whispers intensifying, could feel hundreds of eyes on her back. Min-hyuk's hand was tight around hers, almost painful. They made it to the car, and Min-hyuk told the driver to go. As they pulled away from the hotel, he finally released her hand. I'm sorry, he said. I should have warned you about her? She's been trying to get back together for months. I didn't think she'd approach us publicly. Your ex-girlfriend. For 3 years, yes. It was an arrangement our families approved of. Convenient. Appropriate. He looked at her. Completely empty. I ended it because I couldn't pretend anymore that I felt anything for her. Because you were in love with me, Naomi said. A woman you'd never spoken to. Yes. That's insane, Min-hyuk. I know. He ran his hand through his hair. I know it's insane, but I couldn't help it. Every relationship I tried to have, every woman I dated, I kept comparing them to you. To the idea of you. And none of them measured up. That's not fair to them. Or to me. Nothing about this is fair. He looked out the window. But it's done now. We're married. And Nangshen and everyone else at that gala will have to accept it. They drove in silence back to the compound. When they arrived, Min-hyuk walked her to her room. Thank you. For tonight, he said. You handled Nangsen better than I did. The way you stood up to her. He smiled slightly. You're stronger than you think. I've had practice, Naomi said. People have been underestimating me my whole life. I don't underestimate you. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture gentle. I think you're remarkable. I always have. His hand lingered near her face, and for a moment, Naomi thought he might kiss her. She wasn't sure if she wanted him to or not, but then he stepped back, putting distance between them. Good night, Naomi. Sleep well. Min-hyuk? She stopped him before he could leave. That thing you said about comparing other women to me. That's not love. That's projection. You built me up in your head for 10 years into someone I'm not. Maybe, he admitted. Or maybe I saw something real in you that day, and I've been trying to find it ever since. Maybe now that we're actually in each other's lives, I can finally figure out which one it is. He left, and Naomi stood in her doorway, watching him walk away. Her life had become something impossible, a business arrangement built on a decade-old obsession, a performance of love for public consumption, a marriage that was both fake and more real than anything she'd experienced. She went inside and changed out of the red dress, hanging it carefully in her massive closet. Through her window she could see lights on in Min-hyuk's study below. She wondered if he'd sleep tonight or work until dawn, as Mrs. Cho had said he usually did. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You looked beautiful tonight. Enjoy it while it lasts. N. Nang-sen, threatening her already. Naomi deleted the message and blocked the number. She'd dealt with jealous women before. She could handle this. But as she climbed into bed, she couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get much more complicated. Nangshen wasn't going to let go easily. And Min-hyuk's mother already hated her. She was surrounded by people who wanted her gone. The only person on her side was a man who barely knew her, but claimed to have loved her for 10 years. This was either the biggest mistake of her life or the beginning of something she couldn't yet understand. Naomi fell asleep not knowing which one scared her more. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe for more dramatic romance stories. Comment below what you'd like to see next. Should we continue Naomi and Min-hyuk's story? Let us know in the comment section.